Welcome to the secret source of innovation. We are glad you've tuned in. We have recorded some of our episodes with English-speaking guests, like this one. We hope you enjoy listening as usual.
Hello and welcome to The Secret Source of Innovation, the podcast where we explore strategies, insights, and stories from the world's leading innovation responsibles. Today, we have an exceptional guest joining us, Sisirnath Sangireddy. Sisirnath is a global innovation enabler at Epiroc, where he brings over 15 years of experience in design, digital transformation, and innovation. Epiroc, a global productivity partner for the mining and infrastructure industries, spun off from the big company Atlas Copco and delivers cutting-edge equipment, automation, and digital solutions that boost safety, sustainability, and, of course, operational performance. Sisirnath's expertise spans from design thinking, experience design, service design, venture design, of course, then some change management experience and innovation coaching. And with a unique background in computer science at the one hand and industrial and interactive design on the other hand, he combines creative vision with operational strategy to make innovation both intuitive, which is so important, and impactful. He is a founder of the Foster Program, a global initiative to democratize innovation within Epiroc, and was internally honored with the Dare to Think New award. He serves as a technical committee member at the Swedish Institute for Standards. Outside of the work at Epiroc, he serves also as an advisor to a program at the TED University, is a founder of an award-winning assistive tech startup, and actively coaches and invests in early-stage ventures. So, Sisirnath, welcome to the show. I'm really looking forward to discuss with you many topics on how to motivate people within an organization to join the innovation journey. It's amazing to have you here. What a pleasure.
Thank you very much for that amazing introduction. I some details I even forgot. So thank you very much for bringing it to the surface. And it's a pleasure to be here, to be able to share whatever I have gained over the years and learn from all of our audience who are listening to this.
Very good. So maybe to dive a bit deeper into your background, what have you learned over the past years being somebody coming from the technical side of the business, but at the same time interested and educated in the industrial design? So what sparked your initial interest for innovation, passion for innovation?
I think as the saying goes, if you want to get something done, you got to do it yourself. So when I was on the design side of things, and it's actually, you are part of one of the triage. So you actually are representing the users, you're representing the empathy and all of those things. But then you always kind of are coming from one corner, you need to talk with the two other corners. So when I started with, or the motivation for working with innovation is innovation sits as the intersection of all the triad, basically. So I thought, well, being there, I need to get into the ring to take the fight. So that was the motivation to be there and then say, hey, what I need to see, why, because I cannot keep on complaining on the other side and say, hey, you're not doing this, why are you not doing this, and so on, so on. So that was the motivation to actually get my hands dirty and then experience it firsthand.
Interesting. So you, in the pre-discussion or meeting we had, you mentioned the term democratizing innovation in a way. So to make sure that everybody at least can join innovation activities within an organization. So maybe what's your view on that? So why is that so important for you?
I think the democratizing innovation, and there are multiple terms for that. Also, you have the employee-driven innovation, bottom-up innovation, everything. So everything actually denotes a specific process or a structure in an organization. But my way of looking at is how can we innovate democratically? That means whether we cautiously take part in it or not, every employee in an organization is contributing towards the innovation capability and the revenue of the company. So why don't we actively take part? Whether we like it or not, we're employed for that purpose. like in a democracy, whether we are in active politics or not, we are part of democracy. So same, you need to be taking part in this, whether you are directly having a title or not. So with that premise, I feel like, the democratized innovation part, as I mentioned, was to make sure everyone actively sees their role and then takes part in their responsibility of driving innovation and profits of a particular company.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thank you for that explanation. Maybe to start a bit talking or understanding the company you are working for. So I introduced the company already. It's called Epiroc, and it was part of Atlas Copco. And I mean, if you look on your website, you're building huge machineries, right? So maybe you can explain the listeners a bit, what is Epiroc all about? What's your product? What's your business model? What are you doing?
So Epiroc, as you mentioned in the introduction, we have been spun off as a new company a couple of years ago from Atlas Copco, where we were one of the business areas of mining. So what we do currently is we manufacture mining and construction equipment, and we provide that equipment to various companies who are in the business of mining and construction. So the big machines that you talk, they are actually used for drilling tunnels for road construction. They are also used for drilling the drifts in mines. And then there are other machines which actually carry the ore and so on and so on. That's the underground part of it. On the surface, we also have big machines that actually can do the bench drilling and all of those different things. And in addition to the hardware, as we started our company very, very many years ago, 140 years ago, precisely. We now also are in the digital transformation age. So we do provide a full mining solutions, agnostic solutions that our partners or our customers can use to manage their fleet, to manage their operations, to manage their productivity and service and everything else. So we are we provide the product and the digital solutions complementing the products. And we are a global organization present in about 90 companies and so on.
When you look at the term innovation at Epiroc, is it more than really the technical innovation? So the new machineries, material discussions, engineering expertise, or is it more business model topics, digital topics? Probably both. But what is the bigger challenge today?
I think innovation in Epiroc is actually is considered its broadest term. When the company was actually formed, one of our mindset mantras, if I would put it, that's kind of coined internally and externally, is called dare to think new. So that is something that we actually have as one of the things that we follow. So it takes the full spectrum of innovation, whether it is the internal processes or the external products, digital, physical, and even certain business models. If you see the latest announcements that we have made publicly, they are in the business model innovation realm. And then over the years, we've been innovating the product and both physical and digital product innovation constantly.
And how are you organizing that within the organization? So is everything within the different departments or silos, or do you have an overarching, innovation lab or garage where you pick the big topics and drive them, etc.? So is there a special organizational structure to the innovation organization, which might be interesting to understand?
Currently, I belong to a particular unit, which is actually the hub, let's say. But then the way we work, like any other, the technical terms are the decentralized organizations, right? So that's what it is. But then the way we kind of adopt it to our own culture is to say, it's good that we have the diversity and the liberty that they have, but then we need to come in as the inclusive element. So when you come in that way, then you basically are giving everyone the room and the transparency to do whatever they want to do with the best possibilities. So to fall back onto the question you mentioned, we have a organized chaos, if I would put it that way. So that's how we kind of manage it. So when someone takes up a lead and then goes forward, the the central or the inclusive element also comes in and tries to connect with the different people, and then it kind of goes from there. And sometimes we are not even needed there. They're self-organized organisms that will work.
So you understand yourself or your role within the organization, as your title mentions, as a kind of being an innovation enabler, but only if the different functions or departments, etc., need that support, right?
And if you maintain the core that is needed for that, it's like if I put as a akin to being a receptionist, for example. If I'm the innovation receptionist, our department is, then we still need to maintain the building, the telephone system, and everything else, which again, in our terminology, we say innovation system. So we do maintain the innovation system, but then it's up to them how many of those things they use regularly, when they want to use it more or less. But that's what we do as a enabling inclusive function in the global position.
All right, then maybe dive a bit deeper into the innovation culture, the mindset empowerment topic, which seems to be quite important, I would say. How do you make sure, or your team makes sure, that the employees are willing, are motivated, or at least have the time to participate in innovation activities? A bit what we talked at the beginning of our podcast already. So how do you translate that democracy part really in actionable methods and approaches to make sure that they can participate?
This is actually, there is no one specific thing that actually would work for all organizations. But for us, we basically have, let's say, 4 P's. I'm a kind of a sucker for rhyming words. So it's basically people, progress, process, and props. Not in the same order, but these are the four P's. That means that we need to make sure that people have that space and also the awareness that they are responsible for progress, and they have certain props to use, and that strengthens the process. Okay, so like, again, back to the democratic process. Once people know that this is my responsibility to make the progress of a particular nation, I need to cast a vote so I can actually make the process work, right? So in other words, this is also change management that we do, right? We basically need to do it. So this is how we kind of approach, but we kind of humanize everything. So one thing that we do is we don't use too much jargon. As you've seen, like I use analogies, or I'm actually using certain things that are easy to get in than actually using the jargon. So I could have gone with the change management, adhkar, and all of those different things, but then this is the easier way and humanized way. And that maybe is coming from me being a designer in the back, that I'm kind of looking at that particular aspect. So that's one way of actually, say, communicating. Now, the second part that you asked, how do we measure? How do we make sure that this actually happens? So a traditional way would be to set certain KPIs and say, hey, this is what we see. We get X amount of ideas, X amount of people, and so on. And we still do that because we need some empirical proof, quantitative one. But the qualitative one is that the more conversations are happening around these 4 different P's, that's listening to the, let's say, the coffee talk or the water cooler talk. So we measure both of them. We measure the quantitative stuff, that is how many ideas, how many regions, how many leaders are coming up. And the second, that is the proper innovation accounting. And then the second one is also the qualitative side of things, by doing flash surveys or listening in sessions. You just talk with people, or do you feel comfortable sharing ideas or working ideas, and so on and so on. And that we kind of also collect and then put all of that together in on a quarterly basis, a report.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Can we dive a bit deeper into this qualitative ones? So you just mentioned quickly whether they have the freedom or the possibility to share ideas, right? To maybe mention ideas. What else is relevant for you in that qualitative dimension?
When it comes to a mindset, we can actually measure the methods and the means, basically, right? So by asking a question, okay, randomly, if you're connecting with some colleague and say, hey, when was the last time you submitted or sent an idea? When was the last time you spoke with someone who had an idea, right? Again, not in a specific question, but it's more like based on that listening sessions. When we talk with them, then we kind of can figure out, okay, the thing is that this particular individual or maybe this particular group, there is a possibility of learning and development of this individual. That could be A. B, that could be there needs to be a collective learning and development opportunity for the particular trade or the particular region. Or it could also be, oh, we need to do it a bit leadership training as well, because it's also the capability part of it. Like maybe the particular leader is new, they don't know about all the props and the processes. So then we actually measure those things, and then we go back and then we work through our collaborators, that is the people in leadership or the communications and other people. They say, okay, now this is the feedback, so what is that you would like to do with this? And they have their own program, they have their own initiatives, so we don't have to basically create a specific project or and so on and so on. It just fits into their regular responsibilities anyway, as long as we expose the qualitative information.
And then it's more a tool for you and kind of a status quo feedback towards the leadership, or do you have also kind of qualitative KPIs in order to make sure that a certain level of motivation or openness or absence of fear, etc., is there? Is there something you can share with us, how you measure that or how you benchmark that?
Yeah, I think originally it all came from me being very conscious about the experience side of things, whether it is a service or whatever that we do. So for me, when I started working with the innovation system or the management side of things, it's, as I call, like it's service design executed. So you need to go and execute. So then one of the basic principles or one of the guidelines that we follow in the service design is you cannot design the service and forget about it. You have to constantly improve it. The only way to improve is customer feedback. So who are our customers? These are our customers. How would they give us feedback? They can sometimes give us the rating 4 on 5, but sometimes we have to ask them, hey, what do you think about it? So it's on one side, it is intrinsic to the service or the enabling thing that we provide to the organization from the internal experience part of it. On the other side, it is also goes back to innovation thrives where inclusivity is there, and inclusivity, and between innovation and inclusivity, psychological safety, quite a lot of things place in between. So that's also important for the organization to have such information so that they can actually work with it. That is the other collaborators within the organizations who also are responsible for innovation at different levels.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, and I think also really valuable to hear that you give that feedback to the leadership so that they can somehow incorporate those information, those insights into their daily activities. Maybe looking at the people really doing innovation, do you have any examples how you really motivate people to foster innovation, ideation, to be open, etc.? So do you have some really pragmatic and obvious methods and tools you really have good experience with? Because my observation is often, maybe as another addition to that of course everybody is in daily business. Everybody has 120% capacity running. So it's always easy to say, yeah, we need to empower them. We need that innovation mindset. But if you then really look into the teams, into the organization, innovation is typically not everyday topic, but it's something people are struggling with. So that's a bit the background of my question.
That's again good perspective that you're bringing into the conversation. That's also is actually the challenge, right? We kind of try to separate innovation from our day-to-day business, because innovation is what we do in everything in an organization, and change is what we face every day in our organizations and in our culture. That's a constant. Change is the action, innovation is the reaction, and work is happening around those two. So it starts with the basic communication or actually positioning it in that particular context. So when we separate innovation as something extra than what we're doing, that's when actually the challenges starts to grow. So what we are trying to do, and that also coming from the background of being empathic, and it all starts with people. So you basically are interested in them, and they in return pays that back to the organization. So if we look from the other perspective, from any organization invest a huge amount of money learning and development. And when they do that, they don't talk about innovation, they talk about competence. The reason they talk about competence is they want to do the innovation. So it's all, again, it's a loop, right? So when we are able to connect these dots and then talk in that particular sense, then people see that, oh, I actually am playing a role. So it's nothing different than what I'm doing. So it all starts with that conversational piece and then making them realize that they are part of this. So a pragmatic thing, or let's say maybe an example part of it, basically is we were talking with a particular a colleague, and then he had a specific idea. So in the beginning, we were actually asking, so how far you would like to go with this particular idea? Are you able to invest time and effort into this? So this individual basically was saying that, yeah, I could spend my evening times, because that's when I can actually spend time on this. So when that individual was committed, and then we asked, okay, what are the things that you do? And then we learned that this individual on the spare time also actually builds 3D printed big stuff. So like, okay, let's start off from there. So then this idea was moved forward. So what I was trying to say with this kind of a vague-ish example, without disclosing too many details, is that the belief in that innovation is in everything that I do. It's not a separate thing. Start with someone first, and then the critical mass or the change happens. So it also started like that in our organization as well. We already had certain people who had that mindset, but then slowly the amount of people on that mindset kind of started shifting. Long answer, but that's just to summarize. The moment we say innovation is different than what we do normally, that's where the challenges would start.
Really, really good insights. Do you have also experienced that with that approach, also cross-functional innovation gets easier and easier? Because if you really link it to the main purpose of everybody, that the reason to be here is somehow innovation, then also the necessity to talk to other people in other departments, in other functions. Maybe as an engineer, think about the service, think about the digital aspect of your business. Is that something which also can be observed?
Yeah, I mean, every individual or every one of my colleagues, we all have a specific flavor of our purposes, right? Someone, they have a career path that they have charted out. Someone has a kind of a life path that they have carved out, and then work is complementing it. So it again depends on different what they have. And then they bring in their own interest and their competence. So the competence could be that I'm a hydraulic engineer, but my interests are actually in societal impact, for example. Right? Again, it depends. So we try to, again, here I'm put my empathic designer hat here. So to try to identify what that particular individual is, and then give them in that particular analogy or in that particular understanding that, okay, if you actually want to go from A to B or A to Z in your path, these are the things that you probably would like to do, and use the idea or the innovation as the means to go, because that's what is the highway that the company works on and runs on, right? So then, depending on the particular skill set people have, on the particular area they come, and the functionality, then it's between people collaboration. So then the cross-functional, cross-divisional silos, all of these things, it's man-made. So when individuals are motivated to go and knock on the door, won't be there for long.
Yeah, also a nice picture. Thanks for sharing that. Um, do you have the experience that depending on the profession or the functions where people are working, from what kind of background they are coming, that you need to adapt your approach of empowering them? So is it different talking to an, I don't know, software developer, service designer, or an hardware engineer?
Certainly, it does differ, and that's also one of the things early on in my career. Also, as a designer, I kind of try to avoid the jargons, because the moment we start to use the jargons, we are also unconsciously positioning ourselves as an expert from a particular profession. It happens naturally. So that's what has kept with me throughout my career. Even now, when we're talking with certain, like as you said, software versus marketing versus sales and so on, they have their jargon. They also come with a mindset as such. But then when I don't come with any specific vocabulary or jargon, then I'm actually using their own jargons, their own things to talk with them. Then it resonates. I think it resonates. I have to go and check with certain people, but yeah, it resonates in their own way. And then we also try to talk in terms of the broader picture also. Obviously, when a specific professional comes in, maybe they're looking at what is the business readiness compared to what is the technology readiness, what is the team readiness. If you're talking with a manager, like, hey, what is the funding, and all of different things, right? So we basically are trying to use their vocabulary and then take the entry point from where they are. If it's a marketing, then the business readiness is one entry point. But then say, okay, how do we get to the business readiness? Oh, we need to actually have the technology ready so that you can go and promise certain things. So then we kind of take a quick 360 when the time is right, not from the beginning, but when the timing is right.
And it sounds like you're spending a lot of time with those people and listening to them, and maybe finding out where they are maybe stuck or where you can improve their innovation capability, so to say. Maybe a really pragmatic example. So how do you work with the teams? What is the way you're doing your daily innovation enablement?
So all of this again, and it's done as a service or kind of a overall scripts and procedures and processes and mini processes and everything else, right? So then myself and my colleagues, I mean, now the centralized, we are very very lean team, but then in every country or every customer center, as we call, we also have the leads who actually are exposed to this framework. That is the empathic framework that I mentioned, which is you listen to them carefully, you connect them with the right experts, and then you basically help them answer the basic question, but you don't judge them. So this is the basic empathic framework. Then we basically have internally certain scripts, certain processes, and certain criteria that are also given to them. So it is, okay, how do you read them? How do you basically send them a certain information? What are the questions that you can actually use as a prompt cheat sheet so that you actually extract that information? Once you extract that information, how do you actually use a simplified tools of copilots or other things to extract the quantitative and the qualitative part of it? And if you yourself are not an innovation coach, how could you actually use that to still give them some kind of an input? So this is how we kind of put this together in action. So then when someone has now we're talking about the organic collaborative innovation part, right? So when someone has a particular idea and it comes up, then all of this service kicks in. So an automated message gets sent, and then they actually get to book a first initial interaction with one of us who is available, and then they get the half an hour talk. They talk with us, we go through the 3 different blocks, getting to know them, getting to know the struggle they had or the background of the idea, and then come to the last part where we say we go together with the idea, and then we give them tasks to do, we take tasks for us to do. And all of this is kind of documented. So this is how it's kind of scaled in a sense. And then it's constant iteration, of course. There are certain questions added, removed, and certain regions and certain leads feel, yeah, I don't need to use all of that. I can just go freestyle it. No problem. We kind of, as long as they keep with the generic framework of empathy, collaboration, and constructive feedback.
And what would you say is the dominant challenge your colleagues have? So is it more not knowing what to do? So what I observe in many companies is that although, especially in engineering companies, the technology part is so dominant, they of course understand what innovation is and what R&D, etc., is all about, but understanding maybe the part of the customer needs or desirability, or maybe having an idea how this can be seen from a more viable point of view, or understanding the market impact, etc. So is that something you're teaching, or is it totally different challenges they have?
We have been a traditional company, product centric company for many decades, right? So and we also have employees, or say my colleagues, including myself. We basically like the culture as such. So we stay for a really long time. That means we all have a certain mindset or a certain baggage that we have, our ways of thinking. So I would say whenever there is and in those circumstances, the biggest challenge is basically to look at the things in a new perspective. Or else we can look at, okay, we only want to solve it from the technological perspective. We want to solve it only from the service kind of perspective. But then you need to look at various other business models, or maybe various other partnerships, or, different things. So one of the challenges is the awareness that you could innovate even within the innovation realm. That is, once you have the product or the core innovation done, that you need to, it comes in waves. Basically, it's not like it's done. It's not done in one wave. And that is the conversation. That is the awareness that I believe we have as an ongoing challenge, because we acquire new companies, and we acquired more than 30 companies in the last 3 years. So new mindset comes in, new thinking comes in, and then we need to work with that constantly.
And if I understood right, you always try to create those little snowball effects. So you're in the group, or you look from the group perspective, then you have your partners within the different functions or local markets, and probably also they try to influence others. So by having this snowball effect, you try to reach the more or less entire organization. But that's the basic idea, right? From being decentral and fast and focus there where the problem is, right?
So in an ideal situation, like say if a particular system is working well, you don't need to have the system champions. So people like me should, ideally going forward, I should disappear, because then it becomes part of what our company does naturally, and everyone has their own responsibilities and such. And we also are not focusing much on the top-down innovation, because their R&D groups and divisions, they're very strong. They have their roadmaps and stuff. But then we kind of try to bring in from the other perspective. And then now that we have this other community, let's say, then we can also complement the bigger challenges also by using the collective brain power. If we have a challenge, then we can say, we have a challenge internal, we need more ideas, and they would rise up to the occasion.
Very good. Maybe since we have you as a designer in the podcast right now, and we at Hive also value the design part of innovation quite a lot. Can you maybe explain again? You mentioned empathy a lot of times in the podcast already, but what is it the customer focus, the empathy? What is it which you would say is that design part which makes your role, but as I understood also the entire way how you think about innovation, maybe different to other companies?
Let's say this is my take on, a designer, industrial interaction, any designer, when they're working within a large corporate or within the team, they are one of those very few professions who wants to see the win-win scenario all the time. They want the marketing people to win, the sales people to win, the company to win, and the user to win, everyone to win. And then they are also trained to make good trade-offs to come to that optimal solution, right? And there is one of the biggest point of empathy when I'm coming in. That is, even in innovation, it's not about the technical idea versus the person who actually have the competence. And it's not about pitting anyone against each other. It's more like, okay, seeing where is that nice commonality that we all could win in this particular innovation journey. And that is one thing that actually comes as top of the list. And with that, designers usually, when they communicate, either with visuals or verbally, and even if we talk about the experience, the copywriting, everything is sounding positive and encouraging. There is no where you actually talk neutral or below, right? And then you can have very specific to those things that are sticking out. So I think those two things actually makes this a little specific. When I say empathy, even though I'm summarizing everything into one word, it's mostly what I'm trying to say is it's taking that win-win-win kind of a mindset and working with even the vocabulary of how to actually communicate with any one of them. Even if they're not with you from the beginning, fine. You're actually going to that end of win-win. Even at times when they say no, you still are hearing, as a designer, you're trained to hear an A-B. You're not trained to hear a no, because you know that someone else would lose if you accept that win, right? So that's, I think it comes back as a designer. I think that's, if I put my 2 cents from a designer perspective, that's what it comes down to.
I think that's really cool point. We had a podcast 1 year ago, I think, with Matthias Oppelt from Siemens in industry. And he was also mentioning that he is applying design thinking in a really pure form to all his B2B customers to really understand their problems. Although it seems that, I mean, design thinking is much easier. It seems easier if you're really on the B2C market, so to say. In addition to that, you're saying that this mindset of being a designer may help your company really a lot, although maybe the industrial design part, I mean, it's important for your big vehicles, I imagine, but of course it's beyond that, super important for all the other innovation decisions and processes, right?
Absolutely. And this is also now, and even though we're talking about design as a profession and so on, this is also part of the communication, or even like, I truly believe that, all of us are creative. It's just like, if you ask people, are you creative? They probably would say no, 4 out of 10 times. But then if you give them a certain task in a nice package, they would actually solve it because they are creative intrinsically. It's just that they haven't been kind of recognized enough of their own abilities. Of course, some are more creative by profession. That is the number of solutions could be many from a designer's head compared to someone else, but everyone else is creative. So that's also one thing that we kind of keep on reminding ourselves who are in this role, and also everyone else in the organization, that you are intrinsically creative, you are intrinsically innovative. Just you need to give that time. That's all.
And that also circles back perfectly to the discussion at the beginning, saying that innovation should be a democratized way, because everybody within the organization has at least something to contribute, right? Interesting discussion. Maybe we are coming towards the end, and listening to all your good advices and good metaphors. Do you have something which you can share with all the innovation leaders listening to this podcast to really engage people within or in the innovation process? So maybe you can summarize it again, or maybe have a good idea what they can do to achieve that?
Oh, it's a big ask, and I hope my answer kind of suffices the question. But the thing is that innovation is very connected with each organization's current stage or the culture, right? Like change management, it's like what they are today and where they want to be tomorrow. It's always connected with that. So my first recommendation would be to measure where they are culturally and norms wise, right? And that's again back to connecting with the democratic part of it. Democracy in principle is very simple, giving everyone a part of how the particular country is run, right? But then if you have so many flavors of democracy in the world, similarly when it comes to innovation also, it is like once you understand what is your innovation culture or your innovation mindset, then you actually have to adopt that particular flavor of innovation and drive that. So that's the second part. First is looking at where you are as a culture. The second one is what is that flavor that you need to adopt, and the third one and most important, don't ever take someone else's method and then put it into your system. It doesn't work. It's a mindset. It's always mindset. Use it only when it is part of your second answer. If you say this is the flavor, and in that flavor, I'm going to use these two methods, good. But not start from the third and go towards the first.
Another, really impressive insight. Thank you for that. Yeah. So don't look into a book and just apply it, make it fit to your setup, to your culture. Yeah, really good point again. So maybe the last question, it's always the last question in that podcast because it gives our podcast the name. So what's your own secret sauce of innovation? What would you say?
My secret sauce, basically coming from a little village in India and all the way now I'm in Sweden for so many years. I try to give back what I didn't have. That is basically the enablement. I want to give information, share information. I absolutely like to see people go beyond what I could imagine myself. So that actually is my secret sauce, to give it back as much as I can, and then don't expect anything in return. Just keep giving.
Very nice. I think that was you did a good job on doing that again in the podcast. Sisirnath, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your insights. I think it was a special one, a different podcast with a view on innovation, which is not so often shared, to be honest. But I think it's really a powerful one, to enable people and really make sure that everybody can contribute, which is a really cool ambition, so to say. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and feel free to recommend it to others. Follow our LinkedIn community, The Secret Source of Innovation, to make sure you don't miss any exciting episodes. In our regular podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, we discuss with innovation thought leaders how organizations and corporate culture can be shaped to be best prepared for future challenges, and where you should start today to make your product and service portfolio successful tomorrow.